What's up, y'all? Fight Court in the building. Time to get started. It's your boy Dean Thomas, joined by Ryan Quinn, the mighty Ryan Quinn. Ryan, how are you?
Fantastic. Couldn't be better. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I just got back from Abu Dhabi, so I figured that we would discuss the card in Abu Dhabi. It was hot as a mug out there. I mean, Ryan, we live in South Florida, and I know what humidity feels like, but this was a different level of humidity. This was a complete steam room, and it was, for lack of better words, awful. The heat was so unbearable. I'm just glad that the fights were good, and I got a chance to see. Well, some of the fights were good, and I got a chance to see some good performances out there, particularly Umar Nurmagomedov.
He went against pretty much everything. Well, I know he did exactly what we said that we thought was figured out on last week. He just Dagestanied him, right? He kept it textbook, single leg to double leg, single leg against the fence, body lock, double leg, control on the ground. I felt that Sandhagen, he looked a little bit slower, maybe coming off the injury. And then he looked frustrated in the last couple rounds, and it was just kind of like, so he just kept doing his thing. And then he just kept the textbook, and he won. It was impressive. It was impressive because I don't see a lot of people doing that to Corey. I mean, I haven't seen anyone doing that to Corey. What do you think?
Well, it's weird because I talked to Corey afterwards. We spoke today, actually. Well, text message today. And I gave him my opinion. I thought I was expecting maybe a little something different from him in terms of not necessarily striking, but how he dealt with the ground, and
Yeah.
And he got, like you said, Dagestanied. And while he was getting back to his feet, you still don't get points for defense, right? You get points for offense. And I was hoping to see a little bit more offense from him in some spots. But I think he was relying on being the better striker. And that's an issue sometimes. And I always tell Jillian this, like, we're so reliant on being better on the ground. We better be better on the ground. Like, once you get down there, you better be better on the ground, because if you're not, then it's a good chance we might not be able to win this fight. And I think that's kind of what happened with Corey in this situation, was that he was anticipating on being better on the feet. So if you can stop the takedowns, you better be better on the feet. And I think Umar may have surprised him with how good he was on the feet. And I mean, we always knew that Umar was going to be good, but we just expected Corey to be the better striker of the two, right?
Yeah. I mean, Corey's great everywhere. And I know we're in this level where we're at this day in MMA where people are, it's no longer you got to be good at everything and great at one thing. Now it's you need your identity as a mixed martial artist, but Corey really can fight anywhere. But you just said something that made me think too. And after watching the fight, Corey just so good. Part of the reason Corey's so effective is his way to get in and being so tall. And then once he's in, you're on your heels, you're extended, you're getting taken down or outstruck, whatever. But that being said, do you think that Umar he laid the blueprint maybe to beat Corey? Corey, he didn't look like he was really creating angles. And looking back, I don't really see Corey create a lot of angles. I mean, he's got a great level change for a big guy to use his wrestling. He's got a pretty good snappy jab where he does the bup, bup, bup. I don't know. What do you think about that? Or do you think that's just an adjustment that's going to be?
No, I mean, when you look at it, like when you look at Corey's losses, I mean, it's come from guys stalling him out, not allowing him to be offensive. And TJ Dillashaw, even though I thought he won against TJ Dillashaw, TJ Dillashaw did essentially the same thing, just hung out on him, grabbed him, hung out on his back. And because Corey didn't necessarily win the offensive striking exchanges, like they were close, but he didn't necessarily win them. He didn't necessarily lose them either. But just the fact that when Umar would shoot, he'd put Corey on the defense. So I think, and I mean, I'm trying to remember the Jan fight. I think Jan might have just been a little bit a step ahead of him in terms of striking. So I think that may have been the difference. But I think in terms of beating Corey, if you're a better striker than him, he's probably going to take you down if he knows that prior. but I don't think he expected that from Umar. Because when you look at like his fight against Song Yadong and Rob Font, like he was beating them guys just for straight wrestling, not because he may have felt they were better, but he felt that his chances were better on top of them. But when somebody's trying to take him down, I think that takes him away from his offense, like his better offense, and he just doesn't have necessarily a strong enough answer to deal with that.
Yeah.
It's the top level, right? It's the top level.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm going to go back and watch those fights. I haven't really thought about Corey's losses in a while. And that makes sense. That makes sense. Because those tall guys, I know that they extend you, but when you're on top, if you apply that hip pressure, you could really extend them and make their night really miserable. And instead of putting in half Nelsons or those power half moves, you hang out around the elbow and you just chew that clock, like exactly what we saw.
Well, that's what it is, man. They chew the clock on him, and I wanted to express that to him, but I think in his mind, he still feels like he's winning because he's just getting stalled out, and they're not really doing nothing to him. But in his mind, he's probably feeling as though like, man, I'm getting up every time. A couple more shots on the feet and I win. But he's not getting those shots.
So he felt he was winning those rounds?
No, I'm not necessarily saying he felt he won the rounds, but I think that
I got you. Okay.
And I think the same thing with the Sandhagen or the Dillashaw fight. Very similar to that, right? So he's in these exchanges and he's not getting hurt. They're just hanging out on his back, but it doesn't look good. And he's not winning strong enough on the feet to negate that.
It's making me laugh just thinking in fighting and in training. It's MMA is such a funny sport, man, because you go from striking hard, and then whether you get taken down or you're taken down, whether you're doing nothing, you're just so relieved you're not striking back and forth anymore. So yeah, I bet I wouldn't be surprised if he's in that situation where he's planning striking. And then by the time he comes to, I got to get out of here, 30 seconds has gone by, maybe even a minute, and which can be the scoring of the round.
And I think that's essentially what's happening is they're just taking him so far out of his offense, not far out of his offense, but enough out of his offense to where he's no longer not only not doing damage, but not scoring. So he's going to find a way to score a little more.
You know what fight I really enjoyed the other night, and I don't know I watched the fights with the sound off, so most of the time when I see your face pop up, I put it.
Yeah, turn it on. Dean Thomas is on.
Yeah, I gotta say, what could I criticize here? But I really enjoyed the Godinez Dern fight. I just, it just McKenzie kind of started steamrolling, but she had a really sweet transition in the second round. She didn't finish the armbar, but she hit it, and I forgot what she went to. And then even this is that was a great fight for you entry-level professionals, aspiring mixed martial artists to learn from. Godinez was leading with that left hook, and she connected the first couple times, but then McKenzie, being the experienced fighter she is, realized she's not throwing anything behind that left hook. So that's when she started scoring. And she was Godinez was putting herself in bad situations. It was just a fun fight to watch. There was a lot of back and forth. I just thought it was a really fun fight to watch.
I tell you what, McKenzie that night could have probably beat any strawweight.
Yeah.
Right? I think that McKenzie is championship level. Because we know how tough she is because she took a beating from Andrade, was it last time?
Yep.
And she just keeps coming forward. I can't remember who it was, whether it was RJ Clifford, Anthony Smith, one of the guys I do a show with, and they said she fights like a bad 9-year-old. And I said, that is exactly what it looks like. Like it looks so like rough, but it's so effective. But you can't really control it. Like sometimes it's like world class, like it was Saturday night. And then like sometimes she comes out like, when she fought Angela Hill, and then sometimes she comes out and looks like she did against Andrade. It's like you don't really know, but when she's on, like she called out Tatiana Suarez, and I said, if this version of her shows up, she's better on the feet than Tatiana. She hits harder, just as athletic, but her ground technique is better. So Tatiana Suarez, I think, would be in trouble, like stylistically. It'd be an interesting fight for sure. I've always said Tatiana Suarez was the best strawweight in the world. but this would be an interesting fight stylistically.
I'm down with that fight. Maybe we can add that to our super card in December.
Yeah, we got to put that on our super card. Yeah. And it's just weird, like, because McKenzie Dern, like, I interviewed her last week, and she's just like, I'm just like learning how to fight, and it showed, right? Like, it showed, and it makes sense that she fights like a bad 9-year-old because she fights with so much emotion, like a bad 9-year-old that you stole her milk at lunch, and they're just like, ah.
It's so funny. Like, I feel like when, especially, I feel, well, no, it's not that was, I was going to say it was stupid, but I was going to say, especially, I feel with grapplers and wrestlers, but like, people don't realize, like, when somebody says something like that, that's good to me. That makes me realize that she said that then, especially after a win, that her ceiling is very high and she's going to get a lot better. So, because like everyone knows how great she is at grappling and stuff. When you're really good at something, especially in MMA, as much as we learn, like I'm a good example. I like my wrestling. I like control people on the ground. And one night I got really fucked up on my feet. I couldn't take the guy down. So I'm like, okay, I need to learn how to box, so I should just retire. But when you're really good at something, you just default to that security blanket. And it's so hard to really break that habit in a fighter. And for someone to say that, especially at the level she's fighting at, ranked 8th in the world, I can't wait to see what the next year or two is going to be for her, because if she's open now and she's like, I'm just learning how to fight, we're going to see her striking develop, her takedown defense, offense. It's going to be a lot of fun.
She hits hard, man. She hits really, like, she throws and hits, and she's always had that power. Even when she fought Amanda Bobby Cooper, she dropped her with a right hand. Yeah. But it's just, I think she just needed to get the confidence and have the right people around her. And for that little stint that her and Jason Perillo fell out, you saw a big difference. And now you saw Jason Perillo back with her, and she's back on the money, back doing good shit. Jason Perillo, for me, MVP of the night in terms of coaching. I thought his coaching all night was great, between what he did with McKenzie and what he was trying to do with Cheeto. It didn't execute, but what he was trying to do with Cheeto was great. Let's talk about Cheeto for a moment.
Yeah. That was a good fight. So that's a good fight to break down.
Yeah, you know what? And I just feel like we talk about hitting their ceilings. Mm-hmm. I think Cheeto hit his, and we've seen the best of him. And we can talk about, I'm going to come back stronger, I'm going to come back better. But like you said, there's a ceiling that I feel like when guys hit, I know what it looks like.
Yeah,
I know what it looks like, and I think Cheeto's hit his. Just based on his prior performances, like even some of his better wins, he wasn't really winning those fights until he really cracked them. Like, so I know what his skill set looks like, and I know what it looks like if he doesn't crack somebody. It looks like what we've seen recently.
So, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, and it's not a knock against Cheeto, because not everybody is meant to be a world champion. Not everybody's meant to be the greatest fighter in the world. Just because you train hard doesn't mean that you're going to be the greatest fighter in the world. Cheeto's a damn good fighter, but I just think we've seen the best of it.
Yeah, the way he looked, his body language, the implementation of the performance he wanted to do, the way he was operating, he should have looked like that 10 weeks ago. And what do I mean by that? First of all, I was going back and forth with Alex Davis on Twitter during this fight. Figueiredo's his boy. I wasn't completely convinced that Cheeto lost the first round, although I thought he lost the fight. So what do I mean? So as I said last week, Cheeto likes to win those rounds late in the round with the big power. It looked like he really tried to control the center of the cage early in the round and win the rounds with what the judges call duration, but basically controlling the dance. It really looked like he was trying to do that, but while he was doing that, he didn't know what step 2 was. Like, he just kind of like, all right, let me control here. And he looked really unsure of himself when Figueiredo started adjusting to that, making activity happen. And that's when he was losing rounds, because Figueiredo picked up the volume. And then that's when the fight tilted in Figueiredo's favor. It looked like Cheeto didn't really know what to do after just controlling the center. And he didn't really even look like he was winning the exchanges later on.
And that's an issue. And I think that has a lot to do with Figueiredo's speed. He's just faster. Like, Cheeto's never really known for his speed, and it's caught up to him.
Yeah.
Like, you can recognize that it's kind of caught up to him. And the fact that he got dropped for the first time, not a good sign, considering you're never getting any younger. So normally when you get dropped that first time, it's just a little easier the next time. So there's still a lot of fun fights out there for him, man. He's still entertaining to watch. He's still entertaining to be around. He's a good dude. A lot of fun fights for him. But aspirations of being a champion, I don't see it.
Yeah, me either.
And
what would you adjust?
It's not for everybody.
What would you adjust for Cheeto if you're his coach? It's the week after the fight. What are the adjustments we're making to Cheeto for you?
It's hard to say, man, because I don't know his personality and I don't know what he is willing to do. I mean, I always think that the key to being a good fighter is movement and options. Yeah. And that's the two things he doesn't fight with. Like he kind of relies on walking guys down, catching them with his power. But I think the good fighters have a little bit more movement and they have more options to go to. They don't shy away from positions. They dictate them. And it didn't seem that way.
So what I would think, it's funny because and the reason why I asked you that is because I'm kind of asking myself that right now. When I see somebody who relies on their striking, I try to think of a way that the fighter could add to their striking, whether it be angles with your footwork, with the punching. Often I tell them we got to work on that feint. I don't even know how you would add a feint to his game. You know what I mean? Like where does it work in that state? I mean, am I crazy? Like, you know, like where do you put it in there? Like, what is it setting up? What is it evading? You know, like he is what he is. It's
it is what it is. It's hard. And
maybe punch off head movement. I don't know.
Like I said, man, it's not, getting better. These guys, we use that term loosely. Oh man, next time I'm going to be better. I'm going to be better. But once you get to the top, like it's your growth spurt is already done.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like it's done. Unless it's a rare case. And I don't like to knock on anybody or knock anybody down or rain on anybody's parade on how good they can be. I'm just saying from what I've seen over the years is that when somebody peaks, that's about it. That's it. And then they go downhill.
We say on here all the time, especially when you get to the majors and you get frustrated, don't change your swing. Like you stick to your identity, but
yeah,
sometimes people just can't. Like you're like a tree. Like here's the stump. This is your identity, and some people just can't grow those extra branches.
And that's the key. But that's the thing, though, man. Like if you weren't brought up that way, like if you were brought up like relying on some good shit in your whole career, it's going to be very difficult to change. But if you were brought up in a way where you were always kind of evolving and getting better over time, there's still room for improvement. I still like we're looking at McKenzie Dern and we go, man, there's still room for improvement because you can see that she recognizes that. She knows what she doesn't know. And she's trying to seek that out. But some guys are just like, oh man, I'm going to come back stronger. I'm going to train harder. I was like, you didn't train as hard as you thought you could have?
Yeah.
First time? What's going on?
You're just going to train your power punches harder? It's like you're going to punch harder?
Like what's going on? Like, I don't know what you're going to do different. But we'll see, man. Only time will tell. Speaking of time telling, UFC 308 was released, and the card looked absolutely fantastic. I was sitting in my seat watching the fights in Abu Dhabi when this card was released. I should have been watching the fights, but I'm on my phone scrolling and shit.
Yeah.
And I saw Dana White post the fight card, and I'm like, holy moly. Ilya Topuria, Max Holloway, obviously a crazy banger. Alexander Volkov, Cyril Gane, crazy heavyweight banger. Chimaev, Robert Whittaker. I mean, it's they've loaded this card up for Salt Lake City.
Oh yeah. So these are the two I'm looking forward. And I love when a card is bottom heavy. Or it's not really. Actually, I haven't even looked at the prelims. We're talking like the main card, but yeah. Ankalaev and Rakic. That's
yeah.
That's gonna be a great fight.
Oh, I forgot about that one. Yeah.
That's going to be a great fight. I know often when we talk about these fights, we say, oh, we're going to see early on who's going to win that fight. That fight could happen one way in the first round and completely flip in the second and thirds. Like that fight is such a good fight. And then Lerone Murphy talk about somebody else with a high ceiling. I can't wait to see that dude's next fight, and he's totally getting challenged against the Danny Ige. Like that's I can't wait to see those. You know, I'll order the pay-per-view for those two right there.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. I mean, that one in itself, high ceiling. Like we've watched Lerone Murphy grow in fights, so that's how we know that he has the aptitude to get better, because we're watching him grow. We're seeing the developments with our own eyes. So, but he's going to be challenged. He's going to be challenged. And Dan Ige is another one who's growing. Like we're seeing him get better. We're seeing him improve on his punching ability. Like he's flatlining dudes.
Yeah.
His last fight with Diego Lopez was important, not only because he took it on short notice, but because he won the last round.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was outgunned and still won the last round. Like to me, that's telling.
And you know, I know last time, because we talked about Lerone Murphy's developing his wrestling in his last fight, and I know like sometimes these fighters, they get good at something new, they have a little too much fun with it, and like they want to stick with that. We're going to see how much more his wrestling, or at least his MMA wrestling, is developed against the Danny Ige, because like you probably won't take Danny Ige down twice with the same setup. And
no, Danny Ige too sharp for that.
Yeah, so we're really going to see how he developed. Is he boxing then wrestling, or we're talking about Lerone? Is he boxing then wrestling, or is he boxing and wrestling? That's going to be really interesting to tell right there.
Well, a lot of good stuff on the horizon. I forgot about those fights on the undercard, but that's amazing. We got plenty of time to talk about that, wrap that up. But I want to talk about the felon that you have found for us this week. So,
yeah. The felon this week is Natasha Kuziatina, 6-1 strawweight champion at LFA. Trying to get this girl. I know that we talk about when they're going to be at the big show. This girl is ready. She's an Olympic bronze medalist. However, the strawweight division is difficult. LFA is the place for go. You strawweight ladies out there, that is the place to go. She's the one to get a fight against and win that belt. Natasha is definitely the biggest felon we've had in a while.
I hope you're saying the name right. That's all I care about. Kuziatina?
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, Natasha, you go out there, do your thing, make your people proud. Hopefully somebody fights you, but even more so, hopefully you get that call to the big show, because the UFC can always use new and fresh talent. Well, Ryan, it's been a pleasure. We shall do this again next week, or maybe even this week, but we shall do this again. Always a pleasure. I will catch up with you. And if you enjoyed the show, make sure you hit like, share, and subscribe. And on that note, this court is adjourned.
Peace.